Greetings. I've been sent here to tell you all about Sega Saturn 3D Homebrew. I've been exploring the Saturn, as you may have seen in my last video, and I do have a love of homebrew, particularly in the third dimension, so we're going to delve into that today. If you're not aware what homebrew is, generally they're games that are made by hobbyists and the like, not major studios. These aren't official releases. Generally speaking, a console needs to be modded to sort of check out the homebrew scene, but in this case, we're just going to be playing them through the Cart, which I also had a look at in the previous video. It played every game that I threw at it. However, if a few of them didn't want to run initially, and the key to that apparently is to delete the Q files. So I'm not exactly sure why, but it worked for me, so give that a go if you're having issues. For this video, I'm just going to be focusing on original games, no ports. For example, a lot of people will bring up that there's a pretty good Doom port. Maybe I'll check out ports in a separate video. Anyway, I must go now as my people need me. Let's start with a cutesy platformer where you play as a cat. I'm sure most of you are already on board. Each year, the Sega Extreme Forums hosts a homebrew competition. This will pop up repeatedly in the video. It appears to be a big driving force behind the Saturn homebrewing community, even offering prizes. The original build for Cubecat originates from the 2020 competition. It's had a few updates since, however, with the most recent from February 2024. The game consists of a hub world and 2 levels. Scampering around the environments, you can jump, double jump, and attack with a mid-air dash. That's used against enemy rats. You can't damage them, instead using the dash to push them off the map. Be cautious of where you aim, however, as the poor kitty can't swim. There are several well-placed checkpoints, although the levels aren't that large. While there are red placeholder objects that bounce you around the map, the gameplay is mostly run-of-the-mill platforming. But there is a section where you use a yarn ball to get a collectible, which finishes the level. There are only a few sound effects and no music, however the graphics are fantastic. I love the art style. It suits the capabilities of the Saturn, ensuring everything is clear and runs at a good frame rate. Overall, expect about 20 minutes of gameplay. I really enjoyed playing this. It scratched that platforming itch I don't tend to often enough. I would have gladly played for a few more hours. Now for something completely different, both gameplay and vibe-wise. Cold Case is kind of like Resident Evil. You've got tank controls with fixed camera angles, although you can choose a third-person mode, showing that everything is rendered in real time. Developments appeared to start from scratch early 2023 after using the Joe engine in 2021. It then appears as an entry in the 2023 version of the competition mentioned before, with the most recent update from January 2024. You play what appears to be an investigator. There's a bit of a Stranger Things scenario going on, however. There's the normal world, which looks a bit freaky in its own right, but touching certain objects will transport you to a mirrored hellscape version. This is demonstrated in the intro sequence, and then pretty much immediately in the opening level. You start off in an apartment, but in no time you're defending yourself against old mate here. He might look scary, but he brought his freaky arms to a gunfight. There are a few different weapons against a handful of enemies. Luckily, since the controller is usually missing an analog stick, the gun fires with auto-aim. There's also a few different size health packs to discover if you're lucky. Most of the game is set around a church, both outside and inside. Again, there's just sound effects and no music. The graphics are decent enough, and as a bonus, there's a mode that lets you rotate and zoom the 3D models. There's only about 15 minutes of gameplay, but like Cubecat, the basis of the game is established, and I could have played this for a lot longer. Next, we have a game called Bridget Bishop. This is probably the most funny and polished game in this video. This was submitted for the 2022 competition. You play the role of a young witch who loves to experiment with magic and watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Fortunately, a poor cat cops it on the experimental side and is currently a frog. Not only does Bridget Bishop include music, but there's even a fun static intro sequence explaining the story. Gameplay is Resident Evil styled again, with tank controls and fixed camera angles. It also includes pre-rendered backgrounds with the characters rendered 3D in real time. The goal of the game is to explore her house, locating ingredients to craft potions to help the cat, with each one having questionable results. You can't die, you can't fail, but this is a fun little puzzler with lots of humour. There are also mini games to pass once it's time to mix a potion. It took me about 25 minutes to complete, and I found it super enjoyable to play. I know I probably shouldn't pick favourites, but you know what? This is my damn video and I'll do as I like. This was my favourite game. There, I said it. Ah! Lastly, we have a game called Micro Motor Mayhem. It's not technically a port, so it doesn't break my rule, but it is very inspired by Micro Machines. I like Micro Machines.
Today I'm reviewing Micro Machines for the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive if you have a weird accent.
If you haven't played a game from the Micro Machines series before, it consists of tiny cars racing on real life environments, like a breakfast table, a desk, a garden, a pool table, and even a toilet seat. The big twist this game introduces are Mario Kart-like power-ups. These include the ability to bomb enemies, jump over them, and gain a speed boost. There are also 4 gameplay modes to choose from: practice, time attack, single race, and even multiplayer, although I didn't get a chance to test the last one. It's quite an expansive game. You'll probably get the most gameplay out of this compared to what else I've looked at today. There's about 15 levels and you can play using 8 different cars. You can even choose what two-tone paint job you'd like. This has been developed by Jay Beretta, who's responsible for Cold Case from earlier in the video. It's also the newest game on this list, being an entry into the 2025 competition, although the developer does point out that it needs a bit more polish. They're still working on the music and ironing out some bugs. I got stuck on the geometry a few times and the physics do need a bit of tweaking. While the handling is pretty good, be careful not to touch any walls or opponents. You'll be bounced around like a pool ball. Regardless, this feels like the most complete game I've looked at. The mechanics have been fleshed out in the previous entries, but this feels like you could buy it off a shelf in a shop, if you get what I mean, assuming it was 1995. Once all the bugs have been ironed out, this will go down as a classic in the Saturn homebrew scene. And if you'd like to play anything I've shown here, download links can be found in the description box. Go on, they're all free. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.